I came home one night and was giving Tessa, my eldest daughter, her bath when I had this most tremendous stroke. And I know that Roald, he came up with a drink for me when he saw me, and he knew exactly what had happened.
Hollywood glittered, but this story was written in shadow. Patricia Neal, young, sharp, and ascending, stepped into the orbit of Gary Cooper, a married screen titan whose charm could bend a room. Their secret connection set off a chain reaction. Whispers on set, studio cautions, headlines ready to pounce, and choices that would reshape Neal's path long after the camera stopped. Was it mentorship or temptation, power or vulnerability? In an era obsessed with image, the cost of crossing an invisible line could be career-ending. And Neal would later say she wished she could take it back. In this video, we trace how a private entanglement became a public reckoning, why it haunted her in interviews and memoirs, and what it reveals about fame, consequence, and the machinery of old Hollywood. If you think you know the story, think again. The clues are in the press clippings, the studio memos, and the silences between the quotes. Let's open the file and see what really happened. Patricia Louise Neal was born on January 20th, 1926, in the small coal town of Packard, Kentucky. Her childhood soon shifted to Nashville, Tennessee, where her father, William Coots Neal, managed a Southern coal and coke company in Knoxville, and her mother, Ura, oversaw the home. Patricia grew up in the comfort of an upper-middle-class family, but her heart was drawn more to the stage than to security. At Knoxville High School, she discovered drama, a spark that refused to fade. By 1943, she carried that dream with her to Northwestern University in Illinois. There, she didn't just study, she blossomed. Patricia acted in school productions, caught the eye of classmates and talent scouts alike, and was even crowned the university's beauty queen. For a young woman from the South, it was as though destiny had begun to whisper her name. But Patricia was restless. Encouraged by a scout who believed she belonged on a bigger stage, she abandoned her studies in her second year and leapt headfirst into the uncertainty of New York City. She shared cramped apartments with other ambitious girls, all chasing the same dream. Her first break was modest, an understudy role in The Voice of the Turtle, but it opened the door. In 1946, she landed her defining early part as Regina Hubbard in Lillian Hellman's Another Part of the Forest. The performance brought her acclaim, and soon the young woman from Tennessee found her face gracing the pages of Life magazine. From the attention she gained on stage, Patricia Neal was soon swept into the glitter of Hollywood, signing a contract with Warner Brothers. Though she had never trained for the screen, the studio wasted no time casting her alongside their favorite leading man, Ronald Reagan. Her film debut came in John Loves Mary, 1949, a light-hearted post-war comedy that should have marked a bright beginning. Instead, it was an awkward match. Critics found her timing stiff, her delivery ill-suited for humor, and the promise of her stage triumphs seemed to dim under the studio lights. By the year's end, Warner Brothers quietly concluded she was not meant for comedy. It was on the set of The Fountainhead that Patricia Neal's life took a turn she could never have predicted. The film itself was both a critical and commercial disappointment, but behind the scenes, something far more significant unfolded. During the summer of 1948, Patricia and Gary Cooper were sent to a stone quarry to film several scenes together. Over 3 long days in the heat and dust, their professional partnership quietly shifted into something deeply personal. Patricia would later recall the exact moment she realized the connection was more than just a superficial act. Back on the Warner Brothers lot, they rehearsed a scene where his character declares his love for hers. On camera, he kissed her tenderly as she knelt before him, confessing her devotion. The lines blurred quickly. Each repetition of the scene carried a weight that went beyond the script. Patricia confessed years later that she found herself looking forward to every moment they shared on set, anticipating the spark that seemed to grow between them. The lines became pregnant with meaning, she reflected, as art slowly bled into life. Gary Cooper was no stranger to romantic entanglements. Hollywood had long whispered his name alongside some of its brightest stars, Clara Bow, Lupe Marlene Dietrich, Carol Lombard, and Tallulah Bankhead. Yet in 1933, he had married Veronica Balfe, Rocky, and for a time appeared devoted, until his affair with Ingrid Bergman during the filming of For Whom the Bell Tolls proved otherwise. By the time Patricia came into his life, Cooper was already marked as a ladies' man, but there was something about her that stood apart from all the others. She was just 22, nearly 25 years his junior. But it wasn't simply her youth that caught him. Patricia possessed a sharp wit, intelligence, and a humor that he found irresistible. For her part, she was disarmed by his charm and his quiet, almost old-fashioned tenderness. She later described him in almost reverent tones, his blue eyes always alive with light, framed by lashes that seemed almost unreal. His hands long and elegant, unlike any she had ever seen. To Patricia, he wasn't just handsome. He was magnetic, brilliant, and impossibly romantic. Still, the two resisted acting on their feelings while the cameras were rolling. Both feared that revealing the truth too soon might unravel the on-screen chemistry that the film so desperately needed. It was only after the cameras stopped, once the fountainhead wrapped, that they allowed themselves to cross the line from fiction to reality. When their affair began, discretion was their only shield. Patricia knew he was married, and although the thought troubled her, it did not stop her. Looking back, she admitted that it wasn't his marriage that became her greatest regret. It was the recognition that she was the kind of woman who pursued what she desired, regardless of the consequences. In Cooper, she found both her greatest passion and in time one of her deepest sources of pain. Keeping their secret proved impossible. The fragile balance was shattered one evening when publicist Harvey Oren foolishly arranged a gathering at Gene Kelly's house, inviting Gary, his wife Veronica, Rocky, Patricia, and his girlfriend to mingle under one roof. The tension was unbearable, every word forced, every glance betraying what could no longer be hidden. Rocky's patience finally broke. She confronted Gary directly, and in a moment of raw honesty, he confessed he was in love with Patricia Neal, and yes, he had betrayed his marriage. The revelation fractured the Cooper household. Rocky shared the truth with their daughter Maria, who turned her heartbreak into anger, resenting her father for what he had done. Outwardly, Rocky wore a mask of dignity, standing beside her husband as though nothing had changed. But inside, the family was torn apart. Hollywood, of course, whispered. Warner Brothers, sensing gossip could fuel interest, decided to throw gasoline on the fire by casting Gary and Patricia together again in Bright Leaf, 1950. The film itself failed to catch hold, but the real drama was happening off-screen. During this time, Patricia told Gary she was pregnant. At first, the news was met with joy. A baby could be their new beginning, the bond that might finally lead Gary to leave his wife. For a fleeting moment, Patricia believed they could build a life together in the open. But the world of the 1950s was merciless. An unwed mother in Hollywood risked not only scandal, but professional ruin. The shadow of Ingrid Bergman's exile after her pregnancy outside of marriage loomed large in Patricia's mind. In the end, their excitement gave way to fear. Gary quietly arranged for a doctor in Los Angeles, paid in cash, and Patricia endured a secret abortion. This became the deepest scar of her life. Decades later, Patricia admitted that the decision haunted her endlessly. For over 30 years, I cried alone in the night, she confessed. Whenever I drank too much, I remembered that I had not allowed him to exist. If I could live my life over, I would have that baby. She admired Bergman's courage for keeping her child, lamenting that she had not found the same strength. By May of 1951, Gary and Rocky were officially separated, though the reasons were already well known in the circles of Hollywood. He continued to protect Patricia fiercely, warning friends and colleagues that if they were ever photographed together, he would sue. In interviews, they pretended, careful to dodge questions, but their connection was too obvious to hide. For all the passion that bound Patricia Neal and Gary Cooper together, their love was shadowed by turbulence. Gary's jealousy often flared. Once in a moment of rage, he struck Patricia when he suspected Kirk Douglas of making advances toward her. The affair that had once felt intoxicating began to weigh heavily on them both. Gary's health was deteriorating. Years of surgeries for ulcers and hernias left him weakened, and the thought of losing his daughter if he chose Patricia tormented him. Patricia, too, began to feel the strain. In a desperate attempt to bridge the rift, she invited Gary's mother, Alice, to tea, hoping for understanding. Instead, she was met with cold disdain. Alice, fiercely protective of her son, told Patricia bluntly that she was the cause of his suffering. Why should I see you after what you've done to my son? He is sick because of you. Do you know what you are? The words cut Patricia deeply, and in that moment, she knew what must be done. She phoned Gary, recounting the conversation, and told him they could never see each other again. He asked if that was truly her decision, and when she confirmed it, the end became inevitable. At first, she clung to hope. It didn't feel final. That Christmas, she sent him a mink jacket with a note signed, "I love you, baby Gary." She even tried to call him, desperate for reconciliation, but the silence that followed told her the truth. Their final conversation came in October 1955. Patricia confessed he had broken her heart, and Gary, with quiet honesty, explained that every choice he made was for his daughter, Maria. Patricia respected his devotion, but the loss haunted her. Even so, Patricia's love never faded. In a 2008 interview, she admitted, "I loved Gary Cooper for years and years and years, and I still love him. Of course, Rocky was not very happy with me, and I don't blame her. Nor was her little girl Maria, who I guess was about 11 when we started, and I was very sorry. But Gary, I just loved Gary very much." The end of her affair with Gary Cooper left Patricia Neal shattered, her heartache spiraling into a nervous breakdown. Yet life, as it often does, pushed her onward. At a dinner party in 1952, she met the writer Roald Dahl. It wasn't a love born of passion. Patricia herself admitted she never truly loved him, but she longed for a family, for children, and stability. They married on July the 2nd, 1953, and together they had 5 children: Olivia, Tessa, Theo, Ophelia, and Lucy. But fate seemed determined to test Patricia's strength. In December 1960, tragedy struck when 4-month-old Theo's pram was hit by a taxi in New York, leaving him with severe brain injuries. Remarkably, the family rallied together, and Patricia later described those first 2 years of his recovery as one of the most beautiful periods in her life. Yet the shadows returned. On November 17, 1962, their 7-year-old daughter, Olivia, died suddenly from measles encephalitis and sepsis. The loss was devastating, another cruel twist in a life already marked by heartbreak. Decades later, their struggle through grief was immortalized in the dramatized 2020 film To Olivia, reminding the world of the fragility of joy and the courage it takes to endure loss. Patricia Neal's life was already scarred by loss, but even her own body would one day turn against her. She remembered the moment with startling clarity. One evening, while bathing her eldest daughter, Tessa, she was struck by what she described as the most tremendous stroke. Roald entered the room carrying a drink, and in an instant, he understood. "He really should have been a doctor," Patricia later remarked, because he knew, and he had called exactly the right doctor, Dr. Charles Carton, who was a neurosurgeon. An ambulance rushed her to the hospital where the unthinkable happened: 3 massive strokes in a single night. Doctors did not expect her to survive. Newspapers even printed her obituary. Patricia, with her wry sense of humor, would later reflect, "I like that. I think that's fun, don't you?" "Yes, right. There are not many of us that can read our obituary and years later look back and laugh at it." Against all odds, she pulled through. With Roald's relentless determination and the help of volunteers, Patricia relearned how to walk, how to speak, and even gave birth to a healthy child after her ordeal. Her extraordinary recovery was later dramatized in the 1981 television film The Patricia Neal Story, a testament to her resilience. But survival did not mean her life was free of pain. Behind the facade of family unity, Roald had been carrying on an affair with Felicity Crossland, his mistress of 11 years. In 1983, after decades of shared triumph and tragedy, Patricia's marriage came to its quiet, bitter end. Patricia Neal passed away on August 8, 2010, at the age of 84 in Edgartown, Massachusetts, after a long battle with lung cancer. Her death marked the end of a remarkable journey filled with triumphs, tragedies, and resilience. Though she endured personal heartbreaks and devastating health struggles, Patricia left behind a legacy that few could match. She had already secured her place in Hollywood history with an Academy Award for HUD, 1963, along with a Golden Globe and BAFTA for her unforgettable performances. Her career was defined by powerful roles in classics like The Day the Earth Stood Still, 1951, A Face in the Crowd, 1957, and Breakfast at Tiffany's, de 1961. Beyond the screen, she inspired countless fans by courageously returning to acting after suffering multiple strokes, proving that strength and determination could triumph over hardship. Today, Patricia Neal is remembered not only as one of Hollywood's most gifted actresses, but also as a symbol of perseverance, grace, and enduring talent.